welcome to the Down South Hunting Podcast. This is your host, Mike Higman. We got Adam Cruz on the line, your co-host. What's going on, Adam?
Man, just sitting here in nice, brisk, cold Tennessee tonight.
Oh,
Good
man, we finally got some cooler temperatures, right?
Man, it's awesome. It'd be awesome to have a kid that actually wanted to go this past weekend for the juvenile hunt.
You did get to go though, right? You hit up an island. No, yeah, Land Between the Lakes, right?
Yeah, I went on a special juvenile hunt last weekend, which is actually a week before the Tennessee statewide juvenile hunt. So this weekend was actually the statewide juvenile hunt, and this weekend we had perfect weather. Last weekend I was worried about stepping on rattlesnakes. It probably dropped down probably in the high 30s, mid 30s at night, somewhere along those lines. But we're from the South and we love football, and my little boy loves to just be so disappointed in Tennessee football, and he decided he would rather do that in misery than go deer hunting. So I've kind of learned if he doesn't want to go, then I'm not pushing him, just not doing it.
Yeah. So I take it you didn't get a deer in the hunt last weekend.
No, we didn't even see a deer last weekend.
That's gonna hurt trying to get him to go again the next weekend too.
Yeah, he's had a lot of success turkey hunting, which it's really nice Tennessee that, same as deer hunting, but with the turkeys, I mean, they're flocked up at the juvenile hunt in Tennessee and they're gobbling on the roost. You can get in. It's just more engaging than deer hunting, and, going to a place that we've never been before, it was a possibility we might not see anything. Weather was bad. I got excuses, but you just really want them to have a good time, and I've done some things in the past to probably make it not such a good time on him, taking him when it was too cold or the weather was rough and making him set too long, and I'm just kind of learning my lesson there. And if shorter sits and when he wants to go in good weather, and that's about the best I can do. And if he gets tore up and wants to go when it's 10 degrees, by all means, let's jump in the truck and do it.
I just saw you did a post on Chase the Mountain on bringing kids hunting, right? Some tips as far as the best way to do that. Yeah,
that was actually a guest contributor that posted that, but that was actually a really popular post, one of the most popular I've had in a while.
Okay, so if you got kids and you're looking to take them out, you might want to check that out.
Yeah, definitely some good instruction on there. I was literally writing the post myself, and I had someone reach out to me and was like, "Hey man, can I do this?" Like, by all means. Yeah.
So I've actually got something like that in mind next weekend. I'm taking two of my kids with me up to the property I've been hunting, and I'm hoping we can get some meat for the freezer. I haven't been able to seal the deal on my own, but I'm going to be bringing the rifle with me this time. So I've had does in range just about every hunt I've sat. So I'm hoping I can keep it up with the kids, and I'd love for them to get to take part in that. Hopefully I don't screw it up.
So what caliber rifle do you shoot?
.270. Yep.
And what's your distance? What do you feel comfortable at for a whitetail?
I'm not going to be taking any long shots because I'm in Florida. I can't even see more than 100 yards anyway. I'd probably shoot that thing out to probably 200 yards. The rifle's capable of much more than that. But I'm a city boy, and I don't get to go out shooting that much. So, I want to make sure if I'm taking a shot, it's, something I'm confident I can make. So I'd say about 200 yards, but to be honest, probably not going to need it because the chances of seeing anything over 150 yards for sure. But most of the deer, even rifle hunting, are coming within 50 yards. So, I'll wait to, if there's no reason to shoot earlier, I'll wait for the best shot I can get.
Yeah.
So hopefully I got some good news that next time, after this weekend we record, and we'll see how that goes. So we've got kind of an interesting episode. We've got Glenn Garner, who is Jeff Foxworthy's land manager and also road manager for his touring. But he manages his hunting property, and he's got some really interesting stuff for us. We actually recorded this before the season, and it was right around the time when we were doing the scent control podcast. So we were kind of trying to figure out the best way to squeeze this one in, and this is the first opportunity we're going to get to do it. But I'm excited about this interview that we're going to be releasing out to you, even though we did it a while back. Glenn's got some interesting stories and a great story about a buck named Will Smith that they were able to get on that property. Jeff was actually able to kill him, but Glenn was a big part of that story. So hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, Glenn killed a good buck this year already, right?
That's right. He yeah. So we'll try to post a link to that in the Facebook notes or the show notes. I've been calling everything Facebook today.
You're on a Facebook kick, man.
Yeah.
Going from not using it to everything's about Facebook.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Speaking of Facebook, we got like, I don't know, 105 followers on our page. So how about if you enjoy the podcast, I know we got more than 105 subscribers. Just give
Definitely.
our page a follow. We won't bombard you with stuff on your. I talk about Facebook. I don't know a whole lot about. It's your feed. We're not gonna bombard your feed with junk. But yeah, give us a follow.
Yeah, it helps us out. Share our new episodes when they come out, and that'll help us a lot.
And while we're doing promo stuff, check out Hunting Gear Deals. Cabela's this week has a ton of great deals. So I've been posting links to individual stuff and also the sales. I've got some promo codes for you if you're checking that out. And then, of course, there's deals from everybody else. Every day of the week I'm posting new stuff. So if you haven't been out there lately, check out huntinggeardeals.com.
What was your favorite deal this week?
I would probably say this is just from a deal standpoint. Cabela's had some 9mm neoprene boots that were $70, and they had a bunch of different sizes. That sometimes you can find better deals and stuff, but it's you only got one size. Now for me personally, I'm probably never going to need 9mm boots here in Florida, but if you're a little bit north of where I hunt, it gets down into freezing once in a while where you're at, you might be something that helps you stay in the stand a little bit longer.
Where you might actually need to wear like thermal underwear and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Where you don't wear a short sleeve t-shirt every time you hunt.
Running a thermocell in December.
No kidding on that. Seriously. I was just actually thinking about listening to some thermocell stuff, and I'm like, you know what? Probably most of the majority of the country is not going to be using a thermocell till turkey season, so I might hold
I was
off
using
on that,
one
but
last week. Well, I should have been using one last week. I was getting eat up with mosquitoes.
I remember I had a hunt in February last year. I was using it, so crazy, man. All right, well, let's get to this Glenn interview, and like I said, I'm excited about it, and I think everybody's going to like it. Well, on the line, we've got Glenn Garner. He's the land manager and road manager for Jeff Foxworthy, and he's got a ton of experience in managing hunting properties. He's worked for the Realtree team in the past, and he's got a long time of experience in hunting as well. And I'm real excited to talk to him. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on with us.
Hey, guys. Glad to be on y'all's show. Thanks for having me.
Can you just start out by telling us about how you got started hunting and what you did growing up hunting?
Sure. Yeah. I actually got started hunting when I was real small. My dad would take my brother and I out. Really, we called it hunting. He'd just throw a blanket down somewhere in the woods and leave us over the hill while he went hunting. But to us, we were out there and enjoying the same things he was. And that was probably at age 8 or 9. So I seriously got into shooting archery equipment at age 10 and 11 and started hunting. I would hunt with my dad, and I shot many times before I actually realized I needed to close one eye and look through my peep sight. I could shoot back then targets really well, but for some reason when they walked up with hair on them, it made a big difference, and I'd get excited just like any kid. But after I figured that little part out, I think I hit the next 18 deer in a row. So,
well, that's not a bad start.
But yeah, I've been doing it a while. So since I was a little boy.
What kind of properties did you hunt growing up? Did you have family property or public land? What'd you do?
We actually did. We had a big cattle farm that joined my dad's place. We had a small 200-acre tract, and then we leased. It was a timber company tract of land beside it, and then we had it was a friend of ours that owned the cattle farm that we hunted. So together, I'd say we had about 1,000 acres that we were hunting and managing back then. And we started, that was probably at age 14 and 15 is when we really got into looking at ways to better our deer herd. We, food plots were kind of, you didn't hear much about them back then, and definitely not feeding deer. But we actually back then hooked up with a Pennington rep and ordered some seed and started planting a few food plots, and it was on after that. I tell you what, that's where I really, grew to love not just hunting, but managing deer, trying to manipulate, habitat, put better odds in your favor. And then within a couple of years, this was before feeding deer, we never heard anything about it. We actually worked with different type of horse feeds, mixing stuff on our own, and we put together just a couple little mixes that seemed to work really well. And just a couple of years after that, deer feed was readily available. So we've been feeding, planting, and managing deer for many years now.
Did you work with cattle growing up, or in the family, or how'd you get involved in doing feed like that?
No, we actually didn't have any cattle. It all started with deer for me. We had horses growing up, and I knew by the time I was age 10, the last thing I wanted as I got grown was a horse. So that was having to feed them and water them daily. So I wasn't very fond of horses or cattle, but I really, I don't know, deer just, I don't know, that deer grew into a passion for me. They were, something you didn't see a lot of back then. And wasn't a terribly a lot of people, my age back then even hunting, but we grew up in the country and wasn't a lot of other things to do. And I thank the good Lord above for hunting. It kept me probably out of a lot of trouble, but yeah. So
and I might have missed it. I know you're in Georgia now. Did you grow up in Georgia?
I grew up about 15 minutes from where I'm standing right now, and I'm on Jeff's farm. So I was about 15 minutes north of here is where my dad's place is at, so I haven't ventured far from it.
Okay.
Yeah, Harris County is where I'm at now, and I hope this is maybe this will be the last farm that I manage. So anyway, that's the plan. We'll see if it works out.
So maybe can you talk about a little bit what you do now managing the farm, what that job entails, and I guess how you got started doing it?
Yeah, Jeff has approximately 3,000 acres. It's right at 3,000 acres, maybe 8 or 10 acres shy of that. And on that 3,000 acres, we're pretty diverse. We have the tail end of the Appalachian Mountains that ends right here in the property. We have a lot of good bottom land that has been farmed since the 30s and 40s. We have a lot of upland pines, and that's one thing that makes this property so special is just the amount of pines versus hardwoods. We do have hardwood draws, and there's a lot of hardwoods. Don't get me wrong, but I prefer pine timber over hardwoods any day as far as growing and managing deer.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think that's kind of one thing unique with the South. So, and there's a lot of people that hunt leases and that kind of stuff where they're on basically pine rows, pine land. So maybe we can jump into that a little bit. What do you feel is so special about that you can what can you do to manage that and make it good for growing big deer?
The biggest thing is spacing on your trees, your basal area, opening up the canopy enough to let your understory really thrive. That was when Jeff first bought this farm, the 40 years prior to it was managed for a quail plantation where there's a lot spot, that can benefit whitetail being a quail plantation, but there's a lot that they did that really took away from it. One of the biggest mistakes that we saw before Jeff bought it, and I hunted, and I'll go back. I've actually hunted this property for 35 years. I was on it back when I was in high school, just many years ago. But what we did for the Callaway family, we were in the construction and clearing, grading business, and we would keep up with Mr. Callaway, his roads down here, and we'd do it. Like I'd get off from school and come down here, and I'd get on a motor grader or a piece of equipment and work on his roads, keeping all his roads maintained. And in turn, he'd let me, my dad, and my brother both hunt it. So, having a lot of experience on the property allowed me to see a lot of the mistakes back then that were, if it were, of course, it wasn't managed for a whitetail place. It was managed for quail. But one of the drawbacks to their quail management was they would burn. Back then, they had 4,000 acres in this one block that they managed for quail, and they would actually burn off, I'd say, 80% of it on a yearly basis, which took away, all the bedding cover, and the deer would just absolutely leave, which kind of fit their bill because, the way the family looked at managing whitetail, they were a nuisance. They had depredation permits, they'd shoot deer in the summer, and then at the end of every deer season, they'd bring in 25, 30 guys over here, and I've seen them, on a weekend kill 50 to 100 deer. So they wanted to, pretty much knock them down to where they were nil and didn't have any impact whatsoever on their smaller quail plots. So that was what their mindset was. And what that allowed it to do, really, I mean, if you look back on it, it would knock the population down to a point where, you didn't see a lot of deer, but when you'd see a buck, it was usually a pretty good buck. They were smart enough over and figured things out, the ones that did make it, where to go at the end of the year, and they'd make it through. So, hunting back when we first started hunting this place, you didn't see very many deer at all, but there was the occasional buck and some really good ones. We actually, taken many nice deer off this place, and it was harder hunting back then, but than it is now. But we've switched gears and added a lot of things to make this just a premier whitetail spot.
Yeah, it sounds like with the habitat improvements you've made, the carrying capacity is a lot higher, so you should be able to still have those big mature deer and also support more does and smaller bucks and different age structure as well.
Sure. All it is a fine balancing act, and you're exactly right. I mean, that was our biggest thing, is to put in a lot more bedding area. And we planted, tons and tons of CRP grasses and native grasses, partridge pea, bicolor, a lot of those. And I'll tell you what, man, this place, now the way we do it is just go in and we'll do a select timber cut, and we'll go back over it and chop it and expose a lot of that seed bed that, hadn't seen daylight in years, and the stuff that pops out of the ground. If you have a, good spring with plenty of rain, it's just incredible. We chopped many acres this past year, and it's just thick and lush with all kind of native habitat.
And how often do you guys burn?
We burn every year, but we only burn up to, say 1,000 acres of it. We're on a 3-year rotation, so we checkerboard a lot. We'll burn a block, and then we'll leave a block or two, and then we'll burn a block. So we don't totally eliminate cover in one area. We always leave, plenty of bedding cover to support a lot of our fields. And then, we just jump around. It's a lot more work doing it that way versus, a 500-acre burn, and is the way they used to do it years ago. A lot more work, but I mean, our deer don't leave either. They stay right here. They can just go one block over and find what they need there.
Well, I do want to come back to more hunting stuff later, but as long as we're talking about this right now, how do you see deer relating to the burned areas as far as, are they normally on the edge or feeding in one side or the other? How do you try to hunt the burned areas?
Well, I mean, prime example is this, our burns from last year. They're as thick. We had tons of rain this spring. Usually, if you have a lot of early season rains in the springtime, you're going to have a really good horn year, a really good native habitat year where everything, is just thriving and growing, plenty to eat, and deer respond to that well. I mean, versus dry years, and every year when we have a really, really dry summer, and we've had a ton of those in the last 10 or 15 years. In fact, I think this past year is the only year we hadn't had to irrigate our corn since, I believe it was 2001 or maybe year 2000. But we had a great spring and early summer with tons of rain, and things are looking good.
Who hunts on the property now? I know it's not just you and Jeff. How many different people are hunting there every year?
So currently, I mean, it's always been this way, but some of the main guys that hunt the farm is some of the guys that you saw on the show, that when we were doing the show, people like Ned Yost and Jeff's brother, Jay. Then you got his childhood best friend, Larry Burns, and his son, Brent Burns. Of course, myself. And then Darren Holmes usually makes a couple weeks appearance every year. Darren is currently working. He's with the Colorado Rockies. And then we'll have usually a wounded warrior hunt or, a make-a-wish hunt that we do. And then the state of Georgia, they have been auctioning off a hunt that we've been doing. We actually have one of those coming up this year. So,
is that raising money for conservation and basically wildlife management?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
This big banquet every year. They auction one off.
That's pretty cool. Does Jeff come out for that hunt as well?
Yeah, he'll stop in. Usually he's hunting, too.
Yeah.
So if it works out, yeah, he will.
So I know you work as road manager for Jeff too. Does he kind of schedule his touring around hunting season where he'll be able to hunt most of the year?
Funny thing, it seems like we schedule more shows during hunting season for some reason. I don't know. Up north during the winter months, there's not a lot to do. People they don't get out, but they seem to buy tickets to shows. So we actually stay pretty busy during hunting season. We don't get to hunt as much as I'd like to, but it's still, I mean, it's I don't know, Jeff said, he's still pretty busy. So we stay on the road on the weekends a lot.
Okay. How much pressure does that property get? So it's like 3,000 acres, and I don't know, it sounds like you said there's 10, 12 guys. I mean, is it getting hunted a couple times a week, or how's that work?
Yeah, when things are starting to get good, people know, they start showing up. So I'd say early season, there's a few of us, 4 or 5 of us that hunt a couple of days a week. And we try to get a lot of our does shot early, when the getting's good, because it's pretty easy to pick them off, early in the year before they get too savvy on where stands are and such as that.
I heard, so I was recently, and we haven't even talked about it really. So on CarbonTV, there's a show, Foxworthy Outdoors. They had 5 different seasons, and you can see a lot of Jeff's property and kind of what they do and how they set it up. So earlier today, I was watching one of those episodes, and Jeff mentioned that the wildlife biologist that you had come out there recommended you guys kill 100 does in a season, which seems like quite a task. I think you guys, do you do strictly archery?
Until the last 30 days, we'll break out the guns and get after them. But we actually hit. This was a pretty cool thing this past year. We hit 107 does, and we had one button head shot out of the 107. So that was pretty good.
That is a lot of deer, a lot of shooting,
a lot of cleaning.
Yeah.
Do y'all donate most of those deer?
We do. Yeah, we got Camp Joy right down the road. They usually take as many as we bring them, and then there's a couple other churches that we donate to that like them as well. But these deer, they eat really good. I mean, they taste really good because they eat really well. So we put up quite a bit ourselves.
So speaking of eating well, you talked about bedding a little bit. How many food plots or how many acres of food plots do you have, and what do you do for food plot management?
Well, typically any recommendation you hear from a biologist is going to be usually 10% of your total land mass in food plots, which we do have 3,000 acres. So we have 300 acres that we rotate. We have usually do 150 for the summer program, and then 150, anywhere from 120 to 150 for our winter program, our cereal grains and what you would actually identify as a food plot. Now, our nucleus of food sources, our bottom fields where we grow usually 75, 80 acres of beans, and then we'll have another 75 acres to 90 acres of corn. So,
do you harvest that commercially as well?
We will. What we do now with our corn is we've got some guys down the road that make our deer feed. We usually do a little swap out with them. They make it out of corn and beans and alfalfa. So it's their three main ingredients. And instead of them, shipping in corn, they grow corn themselves, and then usually what we don't leave standing, we'll harvest and put up and do a little swap out with them on some, feed.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask if most of your tree stands are set up on the food plots or in the travel routes to get there.
Both. We have many tree stands out, not counting, our shooting houses and stuff. But I'd say right now we probably have 75 to 80 stands out. And then, we'll have, some fields will have 2 or 3 stands on it set up for different winds, different ways you come into them, different ways to hunt them. So it all depends, if there's a certain deer that's making a certain travel path, you may have to adjust a few. It just depends. But yeah, we have several stands on every field, and usually on if they're not, we do. We started implementing those little kill plots a few years ago, and they're usually between our known bedding areas and our bigger bottom fields. We'll just throw in a little green field up in the timber that we cleared out just as a place to intercept those deer. I mean, you usually catch your bigger bucks up and on their feet back in the timber, and if you can add a little food source to attract them to, your odds really go up. So that's what we've been doing the last few years, is just adding several little small 3/4 acre fields between the bedding cover and our big bottom fields, which they usually end up in at night anyway. So it just gives us another area, another ambush point, and try to intercept one of those big smart deer.
Are you having to adjust those stands from year to year, or do you feel pretty confident in where they're located that you kind of know where the deer will come through, that given year and following that same terrain?
Typically, especially on these little fields, we don't have to do much adjusting. We just don't go in there unless the wind's right. Like if we only have one stand on a 3/4 acre field, we know where the bedding areas are. We know where the deer like to come from. We just don't go in there, unless the wind is good for it. So on these bigger fields, all we do, we'll have several stands covering a bigger field, and we can actually get away with hunting, on a sketchy wind or something. This gives a few more options without, being looking for just absolute perfect wind conditions. And here in the, you guys know, in the South, it's not like hunting out west where when you get a north wind out west, it's north. When you get a north wind here, that thing blows from 4 different directions. So especially early in the season, until we start getting some of these, fronts that move in that really push the weather in, here where we're at, I mean, it shifts and moves almost daily. So you got to really pay attention to your clothes and your, the way you approach it. Because we very seldom do you get, and I think guys all throughout Georgia will agree with me on that. In fact, I had, you guys know Jay Gregory with the Wild Outdoors, really good whitetail deer hunters, kill some big deer. And I know, all those guys, Mark and Terry, and hunted with them and know them, been on their farms. And these guys know big deer. I had Jay come over and try to film a show. Man, he packed up after 3 days, and it wasn't because he wasn't seeing them. He said, man, I don't see how you guys stand it. Every deer that, that I see is coming in, and then the wind shifts and busts out of here. And it's tougher here. I mean, I've killed deer in a lot of different states. It's harder to kill big whitetails here in the South than anywhere I've ever been. So, it's not, I mean, you see a lot more than you kill. It's just the way it is, what we have to put up with and deal with. But when you finally do, it just makes it that much sweeter, when you kill one in one of the toughest places there is to hunt them.
What type of scent control measures are you guys taking?
Well, one thing is I hunted, you've heard of Scent Blocker, Scott Schultz and those guys. And we went through one afternoon we actually sprayed down. I mean, we went through the whole steps, the whole 9 yards, everything as far as scent preparation that you can do, from spraying down every piece of equipment, letting them air dry, to going in and bathing, shampooing, body wash, and then you cover scent, putting it all on. And we made sure to take every step necessary to control our scent. And we had deer that evening. There's 2 of us, me and him, in the stand, and deer just come out dead downwind of us and just never lift their head up. And it was amazing. I don't think you can control 100% of your scent anyway. I don't know if it was just luck of the draw, if the air was thinner that evening. And I always take a shower. I keep my clothes clean. I keep them put up. I keep them away from everything else. I try to slide in them and then go straight to the woods without walking, 4 miles and sweating like a running back. So, but anyway, I don't think, in my opinion, that you can completely control your scent no matter what you do. I don't think you can. You can try, and it helps to try a lot, and make it a conscious effort to do it, but I just don't think you can completely do it.
I think that's one thing a lot of hunters struggle with, probably especially in the South where it's so hot, is where to draw the line of when does it become not worth it anymore? You might as well rather try to hunt the wind versus try to control your scent. So I feel like that's a decision everybody's got to make on their own.
That's right. And if you've got something that's pretty much slam dunk early in the year, those first few hunts, you stand a really good chance of getting the air in them with your luck. After that deal, if you bump deer going in a couple times, the gig's up. They're it's going to be tough on you. You've got to get really lucky because these deer are, once you get them to that 5 and 6 year old class, they know what they're doing. But yeah, if you can get them real early, that's great. I wouldn't, go in an area unless I knew I had to win really good for that spot and go in and try to get him. But if you were to bump him, you can sit back and wait till about the end of October is when you're going to see him again.
When is the peak of the rut typically where you're at? Is that first couple weeks in November?
Yeah. First couple weeks is I'd say the biggest and heaviest chasing, but we see deer chasing those all the way through the end of the year. So people call it a trickle rut. And what happens is, we shoot a lot of our does and try to keep that number in check, but your neighbors are going to have to do it as well. And when that doesn't occur and you get out of skew, then you're not going to see these big ones out on their feet like you normally would. Not like we did years ago, when we had everything in check. I'm not saying that we're out of balance bad, but yeah, it makes it tough if everybody around you is not on the same page. And you hear this all over talking to people, but all you can do is what you can do. And that's do the best you can do at managing numbers, and go from there. So in the middle of our farm, it is actually different than on the edge of the farm, where the numbers are not knocked down quite as much. Usually, on the edges, it's a little tougher to catch these big deer on their feet. They just, I don't know, it's just the way it is. But the closer you can keep that the buck to doe ratio, the better you're going to be. 1 to 1 is, is what you're shooting for.
So when you guys are choosing hunting stands, how does that normally work? Does everybody kind of choose their own place to hunt, or do you coordinate together? And do you have a big map with all the stands? There are 80 stands. I can't imagine trying to keep track of even where to hunt.
Well, you have the guy that owns the place, and once he decides where he's going, then where you'd like to go after that. Fortunately, for us, there's big deer on every end of the farm, and there's you just got to be there when he's there. But yeah, that's usually the way it goes on the normal cycle here in the afternoon. Once boss decides where he's going to go, then, we go from there. But
okay.
And as well as it should be. I mean, that's the guy that's paying the bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he'll give up his stand in a minute, but we don't let him. I mean, it's just back and forth, Jeff would let you hunt his stand any day if he knew you wanted to go there, but he's just that kind of guy. But yeah, it's only courteous and nice if the guy's footing the bill for a place for him to go and hunt where he wants to and when he wants to. And we try to, it's my job to keep it, good. Keep it secure and good for him, and that's what we do.
Do you run a lot of trail cameras?
Yeah, I do. We usually keep about 20 running.
And what's your general strategy with that? Maybe even start, before season. I don't know if you keep them out year round, but maybe start in June, July, and kind of tell me how you move them around and use the pictures for hunting.
Yeah, typically I don't get them out there, until usually around the 1st of August. I mean, you can get their picture anytime you want it. It's just, you're not sure what you're looking at. There's not enough growth there, and formation and tines hadn't come out, stickers hadn't, fully developed. So a lot of the identifying characteristics are not in place usually. So I wait until 1st of August usually, when everything's pretty much where it's going to be, and just needs a little more length added onto it. But you can usually tell what you're looking at and who you're looking at by August.
you kind of have to keep the cameras in the same place every year, or do you move around based on what bucks you're getting pictures of?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you, with our summer program, these big deer, and most of the deer are going to be centered around our bean fields and around the perimeter of them. I've got a few alfalfa fields tucked back that I'll run cameras on too. That usually those deer don't migrate far from them. But any good food source is where you want to concentrate most of your cameras on, and then, feeders after that. So there's 35, 40 feeders or options too.
On a big field like that, do you just put it in like a funnel area around the field, or do you drop a pile of corn? On a big field, how do you get pictures of the deer?
Yeah, we put out buck muscle, that feed that we use in front of it, and I mean, you put that stuff on one of these fields, buddy, they're coming to it. They don't miss. If I just put out one sack, it'll be gone that night. Usually if I run a 3-minute delay, I'll still have 200 pictures. If I run a 1-minute delay, I'll have 400, 500 pictures in a night.
Wow. And you said that's called buck muscle? That's the guys that are right down the road from you?
Yes, yeah, it's buck muscle. That I can honestly say, I've fed a lot of feeds, many of them. I have people, want me to try their feeds all the time, and I have. I mean, I've tried them all. I've been with several different feed companies, pretty much most all of them. That's probably, and we run, those open feeders. They're trough feeders, free choice. So they all can eat whenever they want to. And, you have a lot of blow-in, rain-in, blow-in, whatnot. I can honestly say that's the only feed since I've been feeding it now for 3 years. I've never had to clean that feed out of any feeder on this farm. And it doesn't matter if it gets blow-in or whatnot. They'll clean those feeders out. And I don't know, they eat it. They really eat it.
Yeah, is that commercially available? Is that where can hunters find that?
Yeah, they're actually located right here in Pine Mountain, and their distribution now is really, really growing. But yeah, it's Mike and Justin Strickland, the Strickland boys out of Pine Mountain. You can find them. They do a good job.
And you mentioned Pine Mountain. That kind of brings back full circle to me. It took me a little while to put 2 and 2 together, but I'm assuming the Callaway you're talking about is the same Callaway from Callaway Gardens?
Yes.
That's all the same. Okay. Does your property butt right up near there? I guess maybe you don't want to tell me exactly where it's at, but it's in the same general vicinity?
Yeah, we actually, Jeff bought the Callaway farm, and then there was a few pieces after he bought what he bought, and Mr. Amos that owns Aflac bought one piece of it, and then Bill that owns Realtree, he bought one area of it, and the Callaways still have a large tract that is east of us.
That's pretty cool. That's a beautiful area.
Oh yes, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Going back to hunting bucks, do you typically target specific bucks? Do you guys have a hit list? Do you just go for a certain age structure? How does that work? Yeah,
usually we set our sights on 5.5-year-old deer and older. We harvested a buck last year we know without a doubt was a 10.5-year-old buck. It still weighed.
Wow.
It still weighed right at 270 pounds as a 10.5-year-old buck. But yeah, we look for 5.5-year-old deer and older, and that's kind of where we set our sights on. And usually when you do that, on a farm this size, we typically wouldn't kill maybe 10 or 12 bucks a year. So there's a lot that gets through, and a lot. We also deal here in this area we're in with brain abscess, which we lose probably, we think about 15, maybe even 18% of our mature bucks to a brain abscess that it's an infection. And we did a 2-year study with the University of Georgia, and they traced this back to the original stockings in this area. There were three sites in the state of Georgia that received deer out of a certain enclosure out of Wisconsin. That enclosure still operating today and still has this brain abscess problem in the enclosure. So what it is, it's an infection that'll eat through, and they transmit it and spread it by either fighting or, if they hit the same rub line or same rub trees, they can leave that. It kind of seeps out around the base of the pedicle on the deer and will leave that infection on a tree and can be picked up and transmitted to another deer if he comes by and hits that same tree, or if they fight, they can get it on one another and transmit it that way. And then what that infection does is actually eats through the skull plate and the brain membrane into the brain itself, and then it'll kill them. So.
Oh, that's crazy. I had heard of the brain abscesses before. I never knew that was like a bacteria or something that could spread. I just thought it was kind of like a random thing if they, damage their pedicle or something. Is there anything you can do about do you target those bucks if you see a buck that's got abnormal antlers, or is there really anything you can do?
Yeah, we try to take him out. If we know he's got an abscess, we try to get him out. And, that's when it doesn't matter age-wise to us at that point. If we know he's infected, then we'll try to get him out of the herd.
How do you control, I guess especially with some of the groups that come in there, with so many different hunters, how do you keep everybody on the same page as far as age class?
We do a book every year. And these guys have hunted here long enough to now, they really pay a lot of attention, and they know, they've been here year after year. They're looking for some of the same deer they were looking for the year before if they wasn't killed. And they typically know we've got them all named in the areas the deer typically stay in. So, basically it's just refreshing. They'll come in and sit down with these books and, really study them hard and ask questions. And we go through them and, try to, provide them with as much information as possible. And what a lot of these guys are doing now is just snap pictures of them and keep them on the phone too. So they have a point of reference to go to right in the stand. And if they don't know, they'll text me. So.
Yeah. Hey, I got this one in front. Take a picture and hurry up and get back to them.
I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. I for some reason I feel like most of the time the answer is no if they're not sure enough and they're having to ask about it, but maybe not.
Yeah. Typically, it's pretty obvious. Most guys know this hunted, a few years, what a mature deer looks like. And here anyway, I'm not speaking for everybody, but they've seen mature deer. They know what they look like. And there's, you have an occasional mistake, every other year or so, but it's not as common as it used to be. Our hunters here, they've developed and know what to look for, and most of them anyway.
Yeah, well, I think if I was privileged enough to hunt there on an annual basis, I'd be pretty dang careful about what I was shooting.
Yeah, and guests are usually, over cautious, so they're really, and that's the way most of the guys, new guys that come in, friends or whatnot to hunt, they're overly cautious, and they'll be really sure. They do check in with me if there's a question with anything, but most of the time, my job is to give them the information, and their job is to sort through it and make a decision. And it's worked for us for several years, and right now we hadn't had any real big issues in the past. If there's deer that if we've got a superstar 3-year-old or a superstar 2-year-old, I'll let everybody know, where they're at, what the deer is doing, and they will move, but most of the time they're in that general area, and I always give them every, scenario and possibility that I know of. So they're pretty versed on it, and they're really careful.
So how do you keep track of all these different bucks on the property? Is it mostly through trail cameras or just sightings yourself when you're hunting, or what's your strategy for that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a big area that's surrounded, by a lot of land, and these deer will move. Typically you'll see a big movement, right before a rut. Deer scatter out. But usually they'll keep the same rut zone every year. They'll go right back to that same rut zone area, and you can find them in that general vicinity year after year. But yeah, mainly through trail cameras now, because I can only cover so much on a farm in a hunting season anyway. But trail cameras is the way to do it. I mean, hands down, there's no better tool as far as scouting's concerned than a trail camera.
I've heard other people talking about how deer will follow the same pattern year after year. Even people with the GPS studies, like within like a day, they'll certain bucks will make certain trips and that kind of stuff. Is that something you've seen where maybe you'll see a deer one year and try to hunt the same area the next year, based on what happened the previous year?
Sure. Yeah. That leads me up to Will Smith. That's exactly what we were going through with that deer. It may be a little bit premature on him, but
no, let's go ahead and get into it, because it's an awesome story, and I believe if somebody wants to go back and watch the episode after this, I know it was season 3, and I think it was either episode 4 or 5, I think it was, but it's called Georgia Giant. So if you want to go back and watch it after this, but if you could, I'd love to hear the story of that.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, Will Smith was just one of those bucks. I mean, we started noticing him as a 2-year-old, really high, really long tine deer, great looking buck as a 2-year-old. And then as a 3-year-old, he kept growing. And I had him walk by me a few times. We were just, kind of figuring out where he likes to bed, where he likes to move. But every year that buck, Will Smith, would move early in rut, like middle of October he was gone, and he would actually leave the farm because we wouldn't get any pictures of him until after the rut he'd show back up. So going into his 5.5-year-old year, we knew he was a giant. I mean, just a superstar. And Jeff really liked the deer, and we wanted to get him shot. There was several factors that went into it, and most of those, I mean, it was just, I contribute that deer to, it was just the good Lord wanting it or getting it done for Jeff, because I don't know how else to explain it. What a lot of people don't know, a lot you don't hear about in that, is that deer was coming out regular as rain. I mean, every day, same place. I was getting this picture before dark. Now, like a week prior to hunting season opening up, it was really close to the power line is where this deer was coming out, and the power company come through there mowing and parked their tractors all under that tree stand. I mean, they just blew the deer, blew the pattern, gig was up, he was gone. And it was roughly, 2 to 3 weeks, never, didn't get a picture of him. Like they had actually moved him, and he had already gone to his rut zone, which was off of us. But at the same time, this whole, this year starting, my brother was terminally ill in the hospital. I was spending a lot of time with him, actually spending, many nights up there at the hospital with my brother Larry. And this particular day, Jeff and his brother Jay had stopped in. I hadn't seen them in a while. They stopped in the hospital, and gosh, my brother was, really excited to see him and wanted all his doctors and nurses and to take pictures with Jeff. And by the time Jeff finished his visit, he had taken 1,000 pictures and whatnot, but it really made my brother's day. So that was pretty cool. And then it was, getting kind of late, and I told him, Jeff, you going to try to hunt? You probably need to head on out. And he said, yeah, I don't know. It's getting kind of overcast. And I said, well, we got that stand. I hadn't checked the camera on it, but you probably, just go set it, and anyway, so they get down here and they wasn't going to go, and then they was going to go. And then finally, I think Jay or somebody said something, let's just go. And it was getting late. And these guys, if I'm not here, you to push them out the door, they'll wait till the last, minute to go. But anyway, he did. He went on over and got in the stand, the same stand, that they had parked all the equipment on. And him and Jacob Womack was in the stand together. Jacob was filming. It was back when we was doing the show. And Jeff was actually about to shoot a doe, which this is his first set, in this stand. I had just hung it for this deer. And I don't know why he was going to shoot a doe, to be honest with you. But anyway, so he pulls back on the deer, and luckily Jacob Womack is so short he couldn't see, even though the stand is elevated like 3 feet above the shooter stand. And don't take it out on me, Jacob. You are short.
Yeah.
But anyway, he couldn't see over Jeff's shoulder, so he was saying, no, don't shoot. So Jeff lets down, and when he does, they look to the right, and here comes Will Smith. He's not 25 yards from them and walking, and never sees Jeff draw. So anyway, he walks up there, and Jeff draws back and absolutely drills him. And, just made a perfect shot on him. And he thought he heard him crash. He wasn't sure, but he immediately picks up the phone. Well, I had left the hospital, and I had gotten home. I hadn't been home in a few days. So I was just crashed on the couch, and my wife started hollering. I didn't know what was going on. I thought somebody was hurt, and she hands me the phone and said something about Jeff shot Will Smith. I didn't even know at that point. I was out like a light. I didn't even know who Will Smith was, but it was when I finally got, my mind together. I said, he just shot Will Smith. So I threw on my pants. I took off out the door, and dude, it was something to see. I'm so glad, I did rush out there, because it was one of the most awesome hunts I've ever been a part of. That deer was just absolutely amazing. And we've killed bigger deer here, but that deer, man, he was just stand alone. I would take that deer over any deer I've ever killed, and I've been fortunate enough to kill some big deer. And but that deer was just phenomenal. He was basically just an 8-point that grosses right at 180. So that's
a really cool buck. He's got stickers and stuff, but you're right, that mainframe 8 and just so much mass and so tall too. Which I think we've got to mention the name Will Smith became because of his antlers going straight up, right?
Yeah, it just looked like Fresh Prince Will Smith, just that crown sitting up, because it went, it was a tight, even though it looks real tight, the beams on that deer were like 26 inches. And there are 4 tines on him that's over 14 inches, I believe. Just an incredible deer. One is, we have a few deer, that are tall, but just not to have that's where we missed him on score. And we thought he was, low or upper 60s, but we were way off on his beam length. The beams were incredible. The tine length was just crazy. But yeah, what a buck. And nobody deserved that deer more than Jeff Foxworthy, because he is, I don't know, man, he's done some really cool stuff with his his celebrityism or him being a celebrity. He's still grounded. He knows where he's from, and I don't know how many hospital visits and stuff I've done with him. He just always does his part and goes above and beyond. what is asked of him. Just a cool buck for a super good dude.
Well, and then this is getting off tactics and stuff a little bit, but I do think it's really cool how that deer could be such a blessing in a time where I know it was, I mean, you could tell just watching the show, it was a really tough time. Everybody's worn out. And just to come at that time is really cool.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, this was going through this deal with my brother. There was actually, I was a brother. There was 6 of us boys growing up, so we were all close. And I was especially close to Larry. I mean, he was the firstborn, and I was number 2 child. So we spent a lot of time together, and that was my hunting buddy. You know, we grew up doing it together. We started together, and you know, we spent a lot of time together. But yeah, it was an emotionally charged time, and going through a lot. But what a uplifting moment right in the middle of all that. You know, it was good for everybody.
I mean, it was a cool buck, but the part of that episode, I don't know what's the coolest part. Well, it's either the way Jeff just loses it in the tree stand after he shoots it, or the way you guys celebrated probably the celebration afterwards. I don't know. It was just really cool to see that dynamic, and you know, you could tell what was going on. It was a neat situation. I definitely recommend people go check that out. It's free on CarbonTV. So.
Well, yeah, like I said before and earlier, man, it's one thing to grow them and to have them, but for that, you know, to have that come together where you actually harvest one of these big deer that you've worked for, and you spent the time, you passed them, and did everything you're supposed to do, which, you know, that it comes together, you know, not very often. And when it does, buddy, in my opinion, you need to celebrate it, because it's, you know, it's something that doesn't happen often, and it's really tough, especially in the South, to do that. But yeah, that's my reward, and I mean, I get that, and I don't care if it's me or if it's Jeff or one of his friends or who actually harvests the deer. Just having that game plan and everything, all that work and energy put into it, you know, to come full circle like that, to me, is the most rewarding part of the whole deal, the whole journey.
It sounds like you lost quite a few of them due to that brain abscess. You know, it's got to be so frustrating to get them to that point, and then, you know, they just drop off the map, and maybe you find a skull later or something along those lines.
It's terribly frustrating, especially, I mean, you guys just don't know how many deer we picked up that just would have been or were giants, and which has been several. I mean, we, you know, spend all that time and energy and money, and Jeff spends all that money, you know, getting this place right, and then for them to be cut down right when, you know, right in their prime is tough. But that's another thing we deal with, and still, we wouldn't trade it. We wouldn't do anything different. We love it, and that's just part of it, you know.
Yeah, I guess it makes it all the sweeter when you are able to get one to that mature age. And if you got some that are growing up to 10.5, they're, you know, obviously there's some of them making it.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt. That's not the oldest buck that we've taken. That's just one of one that's really old. You don't, you know, whitetail got so much, you know, going against them with EHD and everything else that's out there. Tough, especially tough dry years. It's not that often, you know, you see them reach that age, but we have here, and we're just fortunate enough to have, you know, a big land mass around us, and neighbors that try to manage the same way, that give these deer a chance. And that's what, I mean, that's the biggest thing for guys that, you know, are getting in it is, you know, what gets me the most, you know, when you talk to a lot of people is, you know, I wouldn't have shot him, but he was headed toward the property line. Well, you know, if you let that deer, if you shoot him, you know he's dead. You know, if you let him walk, if he's a great 3-year-old, it could be a super duper 4-year-old, or you know, just a 5-year-old. Taking that 3, especially, you know, if you've already killed a few, that's the biggest thing. And most people figure it out. But what I don't like to hear, you know, is that, he walks across the line and you hear him shoot. Well, I had a small track growing up, and it would happen to us too. But if I shot the deer, then I knew, he was dead, and he didn't have that chance. And we did it on, on our little small farm back in the, in the 80s. We would let deer walk year after year, and we killed some really good deer back when, other guys were still shooting these 2 and 3 year old deer. But we kind of figured it out early, and it grew to a passion of ours, and we're still doing it today. Whitetail management is year-round task now, and the more you put into it, I assure you, the more you'll get out of it. So let those young ones walk. Let those 4-year-olds walk. If the goal is to kill open young deer, bony Crockett deer, you got to let them get of age. We see the biggest jumps from 4 to 5. We've seen tremendous jumps at 6 to 7 even. So you never know. Each one of them's different, and they react differently. Some, they may have a down year. We got a deer this year that last year we actually had him on the hit list. He had one of his eyeballs actually bulging out of his head. He was down from the year before, and when he was a 4-year-old, he was a 150s deer. At 5, he was back in the low 40s with this eyeball thing he had going on, and we actually said, well, he's 5.5. Let's go ahead and take him out. We thought he might have an abscess. Luckily, nobody did. Well, that deer's back this year as a 6-year-old, and he's a super stud. So man, he had an incredible year. So you never know. You just don't ever know. All of them's different.
So, and you told me you said you've had a couple 200+ inch deer on that property, which are in North Georgia there, which is just mind-boggling. So obviously the main key to your success is letting them grow. What else do you think your area has that gives them the potential to grow so big? What are you doing to grow big deer that big?
Our biggest thing is our native habitat. And it's having bedding cover and understory and something for them to eat right there in their bedroom where they don't have to expose themselves, in certain situations. It allows those deer to get of age. And if you keep your buck to doe ratio close, you'll see those deer, when it's time to see them, when they're most vulnerable, and that's during rut. So the biggest thing is our native habitat, along with our food plot program and our feeding program. It all works hand in hand, but I'd say without a doubt, it's just our native habitat. What we're growing under these pine trees is growing these deer, and us giving them, the time to get of age to really see that growth. That's the biggest thing. And everybody, if you don't have a lot of land, up your feeding program. Feed year round if you have to. If you've got the money, then just get them that food. Give them that, that extra that he needs to reach his full potential. Because, a deer that's not stressed is going to reach his maximum potential. But if he lives his life, throughout the year where he's always scrounging for food and looking for food, it's going to be tough on him. It's going to be tough to see a big deer, You're not going to have near as many.
So once you get one of these superstar deer, how often are you able to harvest them in 1 or 2 seasons? And how often do they die of the brain abscess or old age? What's your success rate once you really get one that obviously everybody love to shoot?
They kick our butts every year, and the ones, yeah. If they go back and watch that Will Smith episode, that's killing a big deer with a bow in the state that we hunt in our area. It is a big deal. So we celebrate it as a big deal because it's not easy. We grow a lot of deer that are, trophy deer that we never harvest. So, our neighbors harvest, and we go through the same things. We have borders, we have neighbors. Deer get shot on bordering properties. They don't, they're wild deer. We don't have a fence like, I've heard people think we have a fence. There's no fence around here. They wander off, they get shot, they die of brain abscess, EHD kills them. So there's a lot of factors in there, that are working against us as well. So, That's why you see a celebration when we kill a big deer, because there's a lot of work, a lot of effort goes into it. Should be celebrated.
That's cool. Well, I got to get this wrapped up because I got kids I got to get in bed. But what advice would you have for new hunters?
One is if I knew I had a big deer in a certain area, I wouldn't go in there until I knew conditions were right to kill him. I knew when he was on his feet, and knew now with his, with all the trail cameras and the technology that's out there, these Spartan cameras that'll send you pictures straight to your phone, all this stuff. I mean, there's no excuse really, in my opinion, to burn a spot when you know basically where he's at, what he's doing. Unless he's on his feet, don't go in there and bump him out. Especially if you're on a small tract of land, where you're going to bump into the neighbors or something. Just be patient with him. Go hunt another place until you know he's on his feet and he's right to see during the daylight. That's the biggest piece of advice I could give anybody. It's just, don't get anxious with him. As long as you don't spook him, he shouldn't go anywhere,
So I guess, and jumping off of that real quick, in early season, you may target a specific deer if you got him on a pattern or something. If you don't get him in those first few days of season, do you normally try to wait until he makes a mistake during the rut? What's your usual strategy with that?
Yeah, I mean, typically, like I said, I keep these cameras out on the, outskirts away from these bedding areas. I don't try to get them in. I don't put any cameras back in these bedding areas until I know big deer are moving or they're on their feet looking for those. I stay away from those bedding areas. Put them out on your food sources. If they're showing up on food early in the year and you got a good wind, go in there and slam him. I mean, that's the time to get him. If you don't get him in the first, night or so, wait till he's showing up on your camera again if you hadn't bumped him. But the toughest thing is, if you hunt these food sources and you go in and post up on him and he doesn't come out before dark, then you're going to bump deer getting in and out. Well, they're going to know the gig's up. So usually if you don't have it just right early on, it could work against you. You might not, get another shot until he starts getting active during the rut.
How do you guys typically hunt the rut? Are you hunting food sources or hunting where the does are at, funnels? What kind of stuff do you typically focus on?
I mentioned those little killing plots earlier. Those are really good spots during the rut, because what these big deer do, they'll jump up out of their beds and run. They'll walk these little hidey-ho food plots that's tucked away. They'll come out in those during the daytime a lot easier than they will, making their way all the way down to a big field or something. Those are really good spots to hunt during the rut. That transitional areas between bed and source, your bed and cover, and your major food sources. So that's where
do you usually hunt those daylight to dark?
Back in my early days, yeah, I'd set them all day. Now, not so much. We early and late, we'll set.
Yeah.
If they're running hard, I like it during the day. Now, middle of the day, because if the weather's permit. Now, if it's not cold, which we don't have a lot of cold winters, but when we get a cold snap and it's 40 degrees during the middle of the day, yeah, I'll be out there. No problem. Yeah, I'd love sitting in that. Even colder, But if it's 60 degrees, it's going to slow that movement down regardless of the rut. So just be smart about it. Don't wait all the time.
Do you try to keep the pressure low on individual? I guess with 80 stands, it gives you the ability to move around quite a bit without having to use portable stands. Do you guys typically switch stands a lot, or if a deer shows up in an area, somebody will sit that until somebody kills them?
No, we don't. I try never to, overhunt an area, no matter what deer is there. If you hadn't killed him or seen him, first day, I try to rotate every day. I don't like for my guys to go bang a stand day after day. That's one thing we don't try not to do here, and it's just, and these guys know it too. They'll rotate them. They know. It just kind of lessens your odds if you go day after day. They're they're gonna figure it out. You get some stands that we shoot a lot of those. That's the first thing they do when they walk out in the field. They look straight at that stand. So, most definitely we rotate them. We even though, we have stands in the area, you can go hunt the same deer just on, in a different area. So, don't burn them. It's not good to burn them. Just makes for a long, hot summer when you have to rehang stands just so they're, they know they're there. So.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate your time. Last question. What do you think is the number one mistake most hunters make, whether new or old, or what's one of the most common mistakes you think are made?
In their setup, positioning, and I'm talking as a bow hunter because that's what I grew up doing. That's what I love to do. I've always said that there's a high percentage of bow hunters out there that can make a shot on a poking young deer, but there's a low percentage out there that know how to approach a hunting setup and where to put your stands and how to kill a deer. So I would pay close attention, and this goes back to trail cameras again. You can figure most of that stuff out with these cameras on what these deer are wanting to do, what their habits are, and a lot of them carry over year to year. As you let these deer get of age, it's a lot easier to figure out. You've seen these patterns year after year, and typically they'll keep them. So, once you have a place, that you've been on, a hunting track that you grew up hunting, or if you've had for a while, it's a lot easier to make those setups and knowing where to position the stands for the shot and knowing where these deer come out. You can put all those pieces of the puzzle together and make your hunting season a lot easier that way. But just pay attention. Biggest thing out there, pay attention to all the information you gather from being in the woods every time you go. It might not be the buck that you're after, but just pay attention to everything out there because you can use that information down the road.
Well, where can we look for any of your stuff anywhere? I know you guys aren't doing the Foxworthy Outdoors show anymore. Are you guys filming this stuff? Is there any way we can keep track of what you guys are doing?
No, we're kind of low key now. We just
just killing deer for yourselves.
Yeah, instead of if we were still filming, that'd be 160 of those stands hung out there. So a lot less work for me. I kind of like being low key for a few years. We might do something later on. You never know. But right now we're just enjoying being deer managers. So hope everybody out there enjoys it as well. And guys, it's been really great talking to you, and I've enjoyed. Thank you for the invitation to being on your show. And anytime I can be of any assistance whatsoever, just please give me a call.
Man, well, I really appreciate it. We actually lost Adam, so he dropped off a couple minutes ago. He sent me a message. He was getting real bad service. So, but I know he appreciates it too. And yeah, we had a lot of fun talking to you, and it's always fun talking about big deer. And we might not all have the same resources as Jeff Foxworthy, but it's cool to see what you can do when you have the maximum resources. Everybody can take something out of that, what they can do on their piece. So it was fun talking to you, and it's fun talking about big deer.
Yeah, and trust me, we all don't have those kind of resources. I didn't grow up with them, but what me and my brother were able to do on our small track, it made a believer out of me. It can be done. It's a lot of hard work and sweat equity going into it and make a big difference. It's a big thing. So enjoyed it, and good luck out there.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Glenn.
Okay, you bet, bud. See you.
Hey, Adam, we're doing this outro I don't know, we did this interview a month ago, so I think it was a really good interview. If I remember right, I really enjoyed it. I do know it's a really good story about Will Smith.
I don't know if you do remember this part or not, but I actually lost internet connectivity about halfway through the interview. So if the viewers notice a silence from me, it's going to listening to it again will be the first time I've heard it. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I don't think we have any viewers, Adam.
It's late at night,
Sorry, I
man.
had to,
It's
man.
late.
Well, anyway, please give us a review if you're a viewer, and
Or a
do that on
listener.
iTunes or Stitcher or whatever. And yeah, that's gonna about wrap it up for this time. Here's the deal: we have another interview we just finished, so that's why it's late at night. We just interviewed Tim Knight, who's a writer for Georgia Outdoor News, has had a lot of success hunting around the rut, and we want to hurry up and get this interview out to you so you can check that out and before the rut is in your area. If it's already happened, sorry, but I hope your rut went well. For the people that hasn't happened yet, you're going to want to listen to this and get some tips on rattling and calling, which I thought were really good. So I think we're going to try to get that out to you on Thursday. Normally, we don't try to put deadlines on ourselves because, well, we don't know if we're going to be real good at meeting them.
Yep.
But we're going to do it this time. We're going to try to get that interview to you on Thursday. So until then, what are we, Adam?
What are we? What?
This is where I was going to let you say the tagline this time.
Dude, I never even remember the tagline ever. It's so good.
Do you not even remember it right now?
It is late, and I haven't. I'm struggling with a little bit of a migraine, so I'm just like pulling through, man. I'm pulling through.
I'm sorry, Adam.
No, you're good.
We're out down south.
Out down south.